And here we go. It is kind of an evening edition, wrapping up day one of the NHL free agent frenzy. I am Dan Kingerski on Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms. We put this on X and we put this on YouTube. Do me a favor if you could, jump over and watch it on YouTube. I actually make money over there instead of just giving it away like an OnlyFans account on X. So handful of moves today. The Penguins didn't do anything earth-shattering, but I think they took a step forward in where they are going. I'm not quite sure what was going on social media. There were people coming out from under rocks. I thought we made a lot of progress this year, you and me, having some really good conversations, especially late in the year about what came next. But man, it was like the Steelers fans or something found us and just were going off all day long on X. What about this? What about that? Let's first, before I get into talking about Parker Wotherspoon, Connor Dewar, Philip Tomasino, Alex Nedeljkovic, Tristan Jarry, the backup situations there. Also, Justin Brazeau, who I'm going to talk a bit about him because he's more interesting than you think. And there's a big reason why. Well, big being a pun, but there's multiple reasons. We're going to talk about Brazeau there. Actually, I have no idea what we were going to talk about first. Oh, yeah, I guess today is my first official day not fully owning the Hockey Now network. I mean, I still run the whole show, but we've got partners now. We've got people we merged with who spent the day texting me questions. Okay, what about this? How do we do that? How can we plug this bank account over here? And I'm trying to do free agency stuff, and all hell was breaking loose at the worst possible time. But it really is going to be an extraordinary time for the Hockey Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now. No, we are not going corporate, but we are certainly plugging ourselves into some smart people who are going to open up a few more avenues for us to expand. Anthony Mantha, I want to talk about him for just a moment. No news. One guy who runs a website who is a rumor guy. By definition, most of what he puts out is rumors. Very little ever comes to fruition on that side of things. And some of it is usually, sometimes it's just flat wrong. For whatever reason, the NHL Network took his report and jumped the gun by a country mile. Like they were Seinfeld hearing the backfire from the car and taking off in the foot race. There's a deep reference, huh? And they put out the graphic, Penguins report, Penguins sign Mantha. Well, listen, it might turn out to be true, but there is no report that the Penguins signed Mantha, not even from the rumor website. So everyone can just put that in your back pocket. You don't need to keep asking me about it because we have an understanding here. As soon as I know something, you know something. I tell you right away. I don't hold things back or, if it's reliable, reportable, I give it to you. And sometimes I even hint that there's something going on, which for some reason makes some of you mad. It's like, oh, I can't tell you because, well, it's secondhand or it's sketchy. There's Robes already. What about Mantha? First of all, I'm not taking questions tonight. We're doing the video. Wednesday afternoon, 1 p.m., we are doing the full live chat for all of you. This is you and I kind of doing a little radio show, though. Let's start the Penguins' first signing of the day. Parker Wotherspoon. Decent-sized defenseman. 6'1", 6'2", $190, $195. Skates well. Moves the puck well enough. Unspectacular. Look, he had to sort of, crawl his way out of the AHL. What did he spend? 5 years in the American League? 4.5, really. before he got his cup of coffee with the New York Islanders, before he signed with the Providence Bruins. No, wait, I'm sorry. I'm slurring a couple of the guys. That was Brazeau that, but Witherspoon rather. Really kind of a Ryan Shea type signing. Here's a guy who seems to be a bit of a late bloomer. It's a theme for the Penguins on Tuesday. Late bloomers. They grabbed a few of them. He is at worst depth, solid, usable, complementary depth, 7th, 8th defenseman at worst. Quite frankly, with the way the Penguins' defense has performed for the last couple of years, he very well might be worth a top 6 spot. No, you're not going to dunk him on the top pairing. That would be kind of insane. But you also might have to a few times as well. And if he can skate, you're not looking for a Stanley Cup winner in 25-26. The Penguins weren't trying to win a Stanley Cup today. They were trying to set themselves up to turn the page to begin looking to win the Stanley Cup. And that's an important distinction that I noticed this morning and even early afternoon, people weren't quite getting. They're like, Dan, where are the big names? What about this guy? It's not happening. Today was about getting from here to there. There meaning when you turn the page, when you start looking upward at making the playoffs with a whole new roster, with guys who are going to be here for 5 and 10 and heck, 15 sort of years. They didn't waste any money on Witherspoon. 2 years, $1 million each year. If he doesn't make the team, you put him in Wilkes-Barre, and he counts 0 against your salary cap, and you have him as needed. Connor Dewar was, I thought, a really good signing. It went, a couple hours between Witherspoon and then to Dewar. We knew that they were still negotiating with him because Kyle Dubas told us that. Dewar takes a little bit of a pay cut, actually, down to $1.1 million. The Penguins didn't qualify him, presumably because if he goes to arbitration, he probably gets a raise. This way, they kept him basically at the same price. There was a lot to like about Dewar. I must confess, and this means absolutely nothing, he's one of the more difficult locker room interviews. He just doesn't like to talk. Like there's nothing bad. Like, I'm not saying like he wouldn't talk to us, but he just isn't a guy who is expressive or emotive or good with the media, good with teammates, not so much the media. And he played just fine. He was a solid 3rd, 4th line, go in the corner, get the puck, give it to the big guy sort of player. Nothing risked, everything to gain with Connor Dewar. And again, if young guys begin to supplant him, you don't feel bad about sending him down to Wilkes-Barre. Again, it wouldn't cost anything other, than the paycheck. It wouldn't have any salary cap ramifications. Then they went with Phil Tomasino, which was kind of an interesting move. Kyle Dubas did tell us on Monday that they were still negotiating with Tomasino. I didn't realize how many Penguins fans absolutely thought the world of Tomasino. Now, I'm going to tell you, it surprised me a little bit that they re-signed him actually at a raise of $1.75 million for this coming season. And the X responses I got were straight up. They were bewildering to me. People telling me that Tomasino was a bright spot last season, that he was one of the good young players. And I was like, wait a second. If you are judging a player purely on their points, then you'd better put it in context. Tomasino had 23 points in 50 games with the Penguins. Or 22, because he had one with Nashville. It's still, because he was playing top 6 minutes, you want to see more. According to Money Puck, his finishing rate was well below average. He was negative 13 points, however they calculate finishing. He was well into the red. Okay, that's the superficial. That's all I expect from some people. We'll let the casuals can come to us with the superficial. You and I will go more in depth on some of this stuff. Our analysis of Tomasino during the season was tepid because his overall game lacked layers. Sometimes I would say the compete level wasn't there. The wall battles, the strength, the puck battles, the defensive awareness, the blanket statement on Philip Tomasino that I would use, that others used on the inside as well. If he's not scoring, how is he helping you win? And he wasn't. Tomasino wasn't fulfilling, let's call it the other 5 or 6 things you can do to help your team. He wasn't doing that for the Penguins. And he wasn't scoring at a rate commensurate with his role. So I was a little bit surprised they went back to him. My gut feeling on this, and this isn't a criticism of Kyle Dubas because they have the space to take this gamble with Tomasino. Again, they have nothing but space and time for a little while. This felt like Dubas doubling down on his trade from a year ago. I think if Ron Hextall had acquired Tomasino, they don't re-sign him today. That's my gut feeling on this. This is Dubas giving his guy another shot or another bite at the apple. Now you go back to Mike Sullivan talking about Tomasino. Kind of some of the stuff we had written in very subtle terms or soft terms in the background, Sullivan verbalized, to my great surprise, in saying, listen, he's all in, was his quote, on working to improve his overall game. And then he would rattle off 4 things that he had to do: be stronger on the wall, be stronger in the defensive zone, more puck pressure, get into the slot, get on people, get near the net, just all those things that you really have to do to be a successful winger in the NHL. If you don't have a wrist shot that just blows away goalies, you got to do everything else. Okay, so Tomasino gets a second chance to continue building with the Penguins. It is. I don't necessarily know how that's going to work because I think the Penguins' top 6 with McGroarty and Koivunen has at least 2 of its 4 wingers. Add Brian Rust, 3 of its 4. And there are some other guys who might very well demand a shot by virtue of their play. So I don't know that Tomasino winds up in the top 6 next season. And the way his game is, he suited for 3rd or even 4th line. That's difficult to say. But I've got no personal dogs in this fight. I couldn't care less. My job is to tell you what's going on, what might happen, what could happen, options, and analyze what has happened. Okay, so from Tomasino, we go to, here's the guy I find fascinating. Justin Brazeau. 6'6", 220 pounds. Okay. He's not overly physical. He's only had 100 hits in one of his 3 seasons. And last season, his numbers actually were almost identical to Philip Tomasino's with the Boston Bruins. He had 20 points in 50 games, 10 goals, 10 assists, almost identical to Tomasino. But then he gets traded, as part of that trade to Minnesota near the trade deadline, and he just completely gets shuffled out of the lineup in Mini. He played 8 minutes a night. He has 2 points, 1 goal, 1 assist in 19 games. So his stats look terrible, right? At that point, you're talking 22 points in 79 games, or rather 69 games, versus 20 points in 50 games. Big difference, right? Brazeau is a guy that the Toronto organization, while Kyle Dubas was the general manager, signed. He played his first year in the ECHL. Came out of the OHL, went to the Newfoundland Growlers, played one game with the Toronto Marlies. And then the next year, he played exclusively with the Toronto Marlies. He's just been kind of stepping up every single year until he gets to the NHL with Boston. So a big guy. I talked to my Boston peeps. Big guy, not necessarily a chip on his shoulder. He's not a steamroller or a power forward. He's a big body who will go to the net and make it difficult for a defenseman to move him. But here's where I'm going to call into play what Kyle Dubas said on Monday. Completely irrelevant to Brazeau, but also very germane in so much as the Penguins calculated that they were able to improve Joona Koppanen's skating by 12%. Now, what exactly that means, I don't know. Whether that's speed, partly counting agility, edges, all of the above. Dubas very confidently said with their player development program and Koppanen buying into it, from the time he left the Bruins to the time he reached the NHL late last season, the Penguins had improved Koppanen by 12%. So if Brazeau can improve his skating by 12%, what does that mean for a 6'6" guy? I'm interested. He doesn't necessarily, he's making $1.5 million a year for the next couple of years. That's beyond what you can stash in the AHL without a salary cap hit. So I assume he will be in the NHL. But it doesn't have to be, right? No one has to be in the NHL. I'm curious to see what they can do with him and what he can do. And then finally, the trade. Let me make sure I got the right one here. Fare thee well, Alex Nedeljkovic. One of the best locker room guys I have had the privilege of dealing with in a lot of years, bouncing into the Penguins locker room. A lot of guys. And Nedeljkovic, Ned, I hate calling guys by their nickname. I just don't do it very often. But with him, I kind of did. I would say, hey, Ned, and we would talk about different things, so on and so forth. He had a principle that he would try to help reporters out because we are helping you out. Now, in the second half of the season, obviously I think his competitive nature, his fire got the better of him a couple of times. His frustration boiled over. You remember the kind of the epic meltdown where he slams his stick, skates to the bench, and has some colorful words. I thought he yelled at the coaches. Other people thought he yelled at the players. It didn't matter, right? And then kind of storms off the ice, goes, cools down, and came back. Until Jari's comeback late last season, Nedeljkovic had largely outplayed him for the year and a half prior. Nedeljkovic was a solid 1A guy. His numbers don't reflect it because, the Penguins' defense was just so bad. He's not a starting goalie, but he's a solid 1A. He's going to go to San Jose. The Penguins get a 2028 third-round pick for him. That clears a spot. We'll talk about that cleared spot in just a second. So he goes to San Jose, where presumably he'll mentor Askarov a little bit. Not the Guardians of Askarov or anything. And he'll probably play 35 to 45 games, barring injury. He'll bring some life, some energy to that San Jose room. He'll bring some leadership. And I suppose when he wears his Myles Garrett jersey, nobody in San Francisco or San Jose is going to mind too much, unless the Browns somehow beat the Niners in the Super Bowl, which Yeah, that's not going to happen in your lifetime or mine. So, fare thee well, Ned. He really did a lot to resurrect his career. I think Andy Kyoto had a good hand in that. That was another weird thing. Like last week or 2 weeks ago, when they rehired Kyoto, people were jumping all over him. I was like there are success stories, and Nedeljkovic completely revived his career from Detroit to the Penguins. Don't forget, Detroit buried him in the minors. Oh, Shelley's telling me Caleb Jones. Let me tell Shelley I'm doing a video. It's amazing how my people have no idea what I do. Okay. Anywho. Do me a favor, y'all. Save your questions for the live chat on Wednesday afternoon. We'll go a lot more. We'll go a lot more in depth with all of this. I'll spend the full hour and a half just with you guys and your questions. Nedeljkovic had been waived in Detroit, sent down to the minors, had to fight his way back. So next season, you're going to have Tristan Jarry and a backup. Telling Shelley, I'm doing a video. You can't keep texting me. You ever get called? I don't want to. I think if I did a couple of jokes about that, I think maybe some people would take it the wrong way. Anywho, yeah. So Jarry, and who backs up Jarry? Now this gets interesting because I don't think Joel Blomqvist is the backup goalie next season. And the reason for that, and it's not because I hate young players. Man, some of these people on X were just taking their stupid pills. I mean, they were gobbling it down. They were just taking the bottle and shaking it all out, cotton and all. They were just eating the whole thing. You have to look at what Blomqvist did at midseason. I mean, he started to get lit up a little bit at the end of his first run, October, early November. He kind of started to get lit up a little bit. So they, hang on. They put him back in the AHL to work on some specific things. He comes back at midseason when they waive Tristan Jarry in January. And Blomqvist just gets lit like a Christmas tree. Just absolutely lit up. And the problem wasn't that the Penguins' defense was bad. I mean, it was. They allowed too many scoring chances. They needed to lock it down and protect the kid. They didn't. But the kid also was allowing a lot of soft goals. Goals he could, or you would expect an NHL goalie to stop. The holes in his game became very apparent as the NHL shooters got a second look at him. They picked him clean like too small of a Thanksgiving turkey. He might, very well might have spent some time working on things. Murashov had to play in the playoffs because Blomqvist was injured. And I have real concerns if Blomqvist is an NHL goalie. He'll have to prove that in preseason and training camp. He's going to have to win that job. However, just because Blomqvist doesn't get it doesn't mean that there isn't a young goalie waiting in the wings. Sergei Murashov, probably too soon. Probably. But all Murashov has done at every level, the MHL, the KHL, the ECHL, the AHL, is just stop pucks. Stop pucks, stop pucks, stop. At every level, he sets winning streaks. At every level, he stops things. Now, Jason Spezza last season told Pittsburgh Hockey Now, we had the conversation with him. I think it was late February, early March before I made one of my trips up there, up to Wilkes-Barre, in Nashville. Spezza and I kind of stepped into an empty luxury box and had a wonderful conversation about some of the Penguins' prospects. And he said, look, Murashov has to clean up a couple of things, but they were incredibly high on his potential. So maybe Blomqvist takes the backup job for a couple of months, few months, or quite frankly, maybe the Penguins go snag Alexander Georgiev or somebody tomorrow on the cheap to fill that temporary role until Murashov takes not only the backup role but the starting role too. That kid has it. You don't know what it is. Even the goalie experts on the internet aren't really goalie experts. So I'm not going to play goalie expert and tell you exactly how he does it or maybe what flaw he is or what flaw he has rather. He just stops pucks. And it's did they actually sign? I'm seeing some comments come in. Anthony Mantha. Did they actually sign him? Or is this people just sort of straggling in? I don't see anything on Twitter just yet. Kelly McCrimmon, Golden Knights, blah, blah, blah. Trade alert. The Rangers trade Keandre Miller for Scott Morrow, a top 10 protected first-round pick and a second-round pick, and then dish all kinds of cash to Miller. When you see that, you're like, oh, yeah, the Penguins had no business being in that conversation. That is well more than I thought Miller would get paid, well more than I thought Miller would command on the trade market. No, I don't see anything about okay, Shelly's going to put up the Caleb Jones story, or maybe I have to stop this video and write it. I'll check here in a couple of minutes. Oops. Okay. Let me get back to the screen here for you all. Yeah, Miller got a payday. No question about it. Yeah, and Mantha has not signed. I really do believe, let me just get to this. I don't believe the Mantha stuff. Honestly, I don't believe it. A 30-year-old who hasn't been productive with how many teams now in the last 5 years? It's not like he needs a second chance or a little bit of a revamp. It's been years since he was a productive, successful NHL player. So why are the Penguins gonna sign a 30-year-old guy unless, they would have to believe that they found something that could make him successful, that would make him a trade chip, into the, at the trade deadline. The high probability when a guy fails 5, 6, 7 times over, you're not gonna be the team that suddenly, it's not gonna the clouds aren't gonna part, the sun isn't going to shine upon him. It's like, "Oh." Not gonna happen. For those reasons, I don't believe Anthony Mantha will be a Penguin. I mean, I didn't believe they'd re-sign Tomasino. I'm a human, I could be wrong, but I don't see the Mantha stuff. Just like I don't see Blomqvist being a long-term backup in the NHL. I think Murashov will take that from him. I think the Penguins might go a different direction altogether and kind of have a placeholder until one of those guys sort of. Oh, I sorry. Here, I'm gonna do this. Okay, turn them. I'm gonna wrap up the video, just talking to the laptop. It's weird. I don't know why that does that. I don't know why it pops. Maybe I have the central air on. Maybe a circuit breaker thing. I'll have to look into that. Anywho, okay, so the audio hopefully is no longer acting up. That gets through everything we needed to talk about. They weren't going to make any big trades today. Now, those come in the next couple of days. Now that teams see what's on the market, what's left on the market, and all those sorts of things. Now, Ricard Raquel's value goes up and up and up and up. So does Brian Russ. Brian Russ value started here. Now it's going, through the roof. Dubas laid down the gauntlet on Monday. We're open for business, but the price will be sky high for Brian Rust. I kind of like that. Dubas Dubas knew one of us, and of course it was me, would run that as a headline. And of course, WPXI Channel 11 picks up that headline. They run it. So I looked today, and it had reached a lot of cities around the league. And Dubas said it for that reason. He was sending out that message. And if somebody meets the sky high price, unfortunately, yeah, Ryan, I know who reported it. I was intentionally not using names. I didn't want to besmirch anybody. Most people in this business whom I've said bad things about, I've first said it to them. If somebody is a scam or a con artist, or they use bad sources, or they're just kind of a schmuckeldorf, I'll say it to them. Because usually I'm their target. For whatever reason, I'm the guy these people always seem to want to pick at, because I've started my own thing, and they always feel like I'm the kid not at the cool table. So if they pick on me, they'll get to the cool table, and they're usually very surprised to learn throw a jab, get a right hook. That's how I roll. So yeah, don't jab me. But I'm not going to besmirch anybody, because Peñota didn't actually report the Penguins signed Anthony Mantha. The NHL Network reported that he reported, but he didn't report. Got it? So that's it, kids. Have fun. Live chat on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Not a Smuggledorf, Schmuckeldorf. I have no idea. When I worked in e-commerce 15 years ago, the owner's mom, wonderful woman, 12 kids. Yeah, they were pure Irish. 12 kids, and she had seen it all in life. A bunch of them were rambunctious boys. She had seen it all. I mean, there was no trick that got past her. It was, she'd come into the office, and she'd set the guys in the bullpen, the computer programmers and all of those guys straight. She'd keep them in line, and that was her word, Schmuckeldorf. For all I know, I'm going to get demonetized and kicked off YouTube for using that word. But I think it's just kind of a made-up word. That's it. Have fun. Microphone will be working tomorrow, so make sure I turn the AC off, and I'll sweat for the show instead. Okay, have fun.